Hi everybody. I've had a few messages letting me know that the Sandman and the Turtles part 7 didn't work. There was no sound, so I'm really sorry about that. So I'm re-recording it again for you so that you can hear the part of the story before you move on to parts 8 and 9 and 10, which is coming later on today. So we'd got up to the point where the Sandman had come to life and Polly and Michael were on their way back home. And Michael had told Polly not to say a word because he was worried that nobody would believe him. And I asked you the question, what do you think? Would you believe them? Anyway, let's find out if Polly listened to Michael's advice and decided not to say anything, or whether she went back and told everyone everything. We met Dadsy sitting in a deck chair in the back garden. His straw hat was over his face. She ran right up to him and shook him awake. "We've seen him, Dadsy, we've seen him," she said. He was smiling patiently as he lifted his hat. "Who's that?" he said. "The Sandman," said Polly, "and he's just like you said he'd be. He woke up and we gave him all our sausage rolls and things. He ate everything, didn't he, Mikey?" Dadsy smiled. "What, everything?" he said. "Well now, and how tall was he? Was he as tall as your da?" Polly stood on tiptoes and reached up as high as she could. "Course he was," she said. "He was as huge, about as high as you and Dal stood on top of each other, honest." Dadsy winked at me as Auntie Ellery came out into the garden with Barry behind her on his crutches. "It seems like they've had quite a morning," said Dadsy. "They woke up the Sandman and he ate their picnic." Barry laughed out loud. "He did too, Pegleg," Polly protested. Then she turned to me. "Didn't he, Mikey?" I smiled weakly and shrugged my shoulders. I wish she wouldn't call me Mikey. "Course," I said. Well, what else could I say? "See," said Polly, and I could tell Barry was more than a little disappointed in me. I was in a spot here. I mean, I didn't want to upset anyone. Not Polly, not Barry, not anyone. Polly went on. "And then he just whistled and the 3 turtles came swimming up out of the sea, and he says he wants to go home, but he can't because coracle's turned upside down and someone's put a lighthouse on top of it. And he eats bladder-wrack sandwiches and milk. Honest he does. It's just like you said in the story, Dadsy." "And why wouldn't it be?" said Dadsy, chortling wickedly. "I ask you, would I tell you a fib now? Would I?" "I'm starved," said Polly. "Of course you are," said Auntie Ellery. "What do you expect if you go giving your picnic to the Sandman like that? I'm not surprised you're hungry. Greedy old Sandman." She turned to me with a knowing look in her eyes. "What about you, Michael? You look a bit peaky." If I did look peaky, it wasn't because I was hungry. "Too much Polly," said Barry. "Pegleg Dumbo," said Polly, and she stuck her tongue out at him and ran indoors after Auntie Ellery, still rabbiting on about the Sandman. "Come on," said Barry. "I've got the kite ready and the wind's just right." "You go careful," said Dadsy. "Don't go prancing around on that leg of yours." And then Polly came running out again. "What about the Sandman's supper?" she said. "The Sandman can sing for his supper," Barry said. "Mike's flying my kite." "Later," I said to Polly. "We'll do it later." It wasn't at all easy keeping everyone happy. "My sister's a nutter," said Barry as we walked away. "A real nutter." And then he let me have a go with one of his crutches. "We'll have a crutch race," he said, and I discovered he could still run faster than me, even with a broken leg. That afternoon I flew the yellow kite from the back garden, and it soared up over the fields, around Buzzard Rock, and Barry was right. It was perfect kite flying weather. The breeze off the sea filling the kite with a life of its own. It was a wheeling buzzard, a rearing cobra, a skimming swallow, whatever it wanted to be. I didn't seem to be able to control it at all. When the kite decided it would dive bomb the cows and scatter them in all directions, Barry took it off me and flew it himself. And after that, whenever it grounded in the rocks or the gorse, I was sent off to retrieve it and launch it again. I didn't mind a bit. I was with Barry, and I could watch a kite forever. He obviously didn't believe a word Polly had said, because he never mentioned Polly or the Sandman all afternoon, and neither did I. When Auntie Ellery called him inside to lie down for a bit to rest his leg, I went off to help Uncle Rob with the evening milking. We'd just put the cows out and I was washing down the parlour with the hosepipe when Polly appeared carrying a churn in one hand and a plastic bag in the other. "What you got there?" said Uncle Rob, taking off his milking apron. "Bread for the Sandman," she said, "and Daddy gave me some crust too for the turtles. He said turtles love their crusts better if they've been soaked in milk." "Well, if anyone knows what turtles like," said Uncle Rob, winking at me, "then it'll be Dadsy." And he patted her on the head as he passed. "I'll leave you to finish up here then, Michael. I'm going to have a word with Barry. Frightened the cows silly, he did. Him and that flipping kite of his. All upset and messy they were." I kept very quiet. I'm not at all brave when it comes to owning up. I never have been. What do you think Michael should have done? Should he have owned up and told his uncle that it was his fault the kite went into the cows? What would you have done? Would you have been brave, told the truth? Or would you have let Barry take the rap for it? Polly waited until he was gone and then handed me the churn. "You do it," she said. "I can't reach, and anyway, I'm not allowed. Full to the top, mind, remember? There's 3 of them and the Sandman." So I did what I was told, dipping the scoop in the tank and filled the churn right up. "We've got to hurry," she said. "Mum wouldn't let me go down to the beach without you. I told her the Sandman would look after me, but she still said I had to wait for you. Come on, he's waiting." We spotted the Sandman from the cliff path. He was out at sea, sitting astride one of the giant turtles. The other 2 were swimming alongside. When he saw us coming, he waved, and the turtles turned and made for the beach. We ran down to meet him. Polly was holding up the plastic bag. "We've got lots of bread for your sandwiches, and we got crusts too for the turtles," she said. "Dadsy said they like crusts." "And so they do," said the Sandman. "Aren't you the clever ones? Let me see now." He sounded just like Dadsy, about to begin one of his stories. "Let me see now." He was looking all around him on the beach. I had no idea what for, but then he found it. What's he looking for? Any ideas? A great saucer-shaped rock that lay tipped sideways in the sand right under the cliff. "This'll maybe do," he said as he inspected it carefully. Then he took a deep breath, bent his knees, spread his arms out wide and lifted it just like that. "What are you doing?" said Polly. "I suppose you could say I'm sort of laying the table," the Sandman said, "for me turtles. In the sea there's not a creature that swims better, but they're just not made for walking on the land. It hurts their flippers, so it does." No huffing, no puffing. Easy as you like, he carried the rock all the way down the beach and dropped it into the sand near the sea. Polly poured in the milk and broke up the crusts. She wouldn't let me do it. She sprinkled them on the milk, and then we mixed them round and round until they were well and truly soaked. "There we are now then," he said. Now he sounded like Auntie Ellery, and he licked his fingers. Ugh. "Dinner is served, boys. Bread crusts all nice and soggy, just as you like them. Come and get it." And the turtles scooped their way out of the shallows, lifted their heads over the lip of the rock and dipped their chins into the milk. Eyes closed in bliss, they lapped and chomped and licked until the rock was quite dry. This all took some time, because of course turtles do everything in slow motion. Meanwhile, the Sandman was busy scoffing his sandwiches. He ate with his mouth open, the bladder wrack popping and crunching as he chewed. When he'd finished, he washed it all down with what was left of the milk from the churn. Then he burped, loud and long, and loosened his seaweed belt from around his belly. "Have you ever had bladder wrack sandwiches?" he asked. We shook our heads. "Sure, it's the best brain food in the whole world. It helps you with your thinking processes." "Well, that's what my old mother told me, and she was more than usually right." He shook his head sadly. "But I've been thinking and thinking, and I've still got no notion how I'm going to get myself back home to Ireland. I thought maybe I could ride on me turtles, take turns maybe. But it's no good at all. We tried it. They're just not as young as they were. They can just about carry me as far as me poor old upside-down coracle out there, but they'd never get me all the way back to Ireland. Polly wasn't listening. She was shielding her eyes with her arm as she looked out towards the lighthouse. I knew what she was thinking, because I was thinking just the same thing. What do you think Polly and Michael are thinking? What are they planning next? They've just been looking at Coracle Island with the lighthouse on. And the Sandman was talking about how far the turtles could take him. You'll have to come back tomorrow to find out what happened next. But put your ideas down in the comments. Let's see who can get it right. Take care. See you later. Bye.